morning. The Senate and House Judiciary Conference Committee on Senate Bill 286 will come to order. Thank you to those of us who are joining, those of you who are joining us in the committee meeting room and those of you following along online. Last we left it last night before we adjourned was the Senate had made an offer regarding some change in language that incorporated the House counter to new Section 1A2 and added some additional language there. And also included in the Senate offer was some proposed language to be added to new Section 5, subsection C. So with that, then, we adjourned, and my understanding is that, as often happens in conference committee, and when, for instance, one chamber doesn't have a position on an issue in a bill, that Senate President and House Speaker got together and considered some language and talked about the bill, and here we are today after those discussions. So I think that leaves us then with the House to respond to the offer of the Senate that was made last night.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. So yeah, we looked at your offer and we really appreciate it. We were struggling with how do we make this bill single subject, and that was our struggle from an offer earlier in the day when you tried to add in the language that we thought needed to be separated and put somewhere else. And so when you added it as an exception, we think that fits well. It keeps it single subject, both liability, both civil and criminal. So again, we really appreciated that offer. We do have a counter offer. We took your language and just cleaned it up a little bit. As we expressed, we were concerned about whether or not those provisions be retroactive or not. And so we added some language that will make it clear that your changes are only, it's on and after the effective date of this act that this new provision applies. And then we just cleaned up the rest of it a little bit. I'll have Natalie pass that out. I do want to make clear that our offer includes our offer earlier yesterday, the days are running together, that changed the language on restraint. As you'll recall, we changed that a little bit and just clarified what restraint meant up in new Section 1. So that remains part of our offer. And then our counter back to you that, again, tweaking your language and making clear that it's only applicable after the effective date of this act.
Thank you. There was some concern expressed by the House about the bill that they sent to the Senate was maybe not a single subject. So I'm glad that you, with the back and forth that we've had here in committee, are satisfied that we're down to a single subject. And we will then thank you for this offer and pause for a moment and stand at ease while we consider this. Thank you. Could we have an explanation of the amendment from the reviser first? And using amendment loosely, but the House offer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the way I understand the House offer would be to include the changes to Section 1 in the interference statute that you guys talked about last time, and then incorporate these changes to the Senate offer on the vaccination language. So it would apply prospectively on and after the effective date of the act. And so essentially, the tie-in here is that those healthcare services would have to have been provided at a medical care facility in order to exclude them from the immunity from liability provisions.
Thank you. Regarding the new language, which is in Section 5, the new language of the House offer, the Senate had talked with, Senate leadership had talked to House leadership, and as well as some of the hospital entities as well, and it seemed that subsection 4 might be duplicative, or is that the reason that it was struck?
Yeah, and we thought need to be a lot more language there explaining what the policy would require, how the policy would be adopted, where it would have to go, those types of things. And since 3, we thought 3 really covered it, whether you have a policy or not. If you're providing healthcare services in a medical care facility, you don't get the liability protection if you're denying services because of COVID-19 vaccination status. So really, there really is no reason to adopt a policy because state law is requiring that if you want that liability protection, you can't deny services.
Thank you. Appreciate the House offer. We have been hearing from Kansans across the state about the COVID-19 vaccination status issue, and Section 3 of the House offer covers some of that, but we're hearing from Kansans that it doesn't cover quite the entire situation. So based on some conversations that the Senate President has had with others, the Senate thanks the House for its offer and rejects the offer and has a counter offer. If you want to distribute that, and the counter offer from the Senate is this: it includes the language proposed and offered by the House regarding the change to new Section 1 and the definition of restraint in that section. And so the offer includes that part of the House offer and only changes the House offer with regard to the House's subparagraph 3 to Section 5. And if we could have an explanation from the reviser about the Senate offer in total, which again also includes the language change to new Section 1.
Madam Chair, so what this one would do, whereas the House counter offer only applied to healthcare providers who are either employed by or providing services at a medical care facility, which essentially is a hospital, an ambulatory care facility, or a recuperation center. The Senate offer here would apply this requirement to all healthcare providers. So that would not just be limited to the hospital setting.
Thank you. And again, this was what the Senate President had talked with others about, and language that would get the Senate to a position where the Senate could then be in a position to accept Senate Bill 286 as it came out of the House with the change to new Section 1A2, that language that has been agreed to in the back and forth here regarding the language to add with the intent to prevent such employee from freely moving to a different location or to provide care for another person, and then also incorporate subsection 3 into section 5C. And the thinking here is that with the expansion of the immunity that the House included in section 5, that it also ought to be the position that the public, the patients, the Kansans, would then be treated by the healthcare community regardless, and not based solely on whether they were going to be treated or not, based solely on the person's COVID-19 vaccination status. So it's kind of with the immunity provided in Section 5, you also have to then not deny healthcare services based solely on such person's COVID-19 vaccination status. Could be for other reasons, but not solely on the COVID-19 vaccination status. So that's the Senate offer.
Okay, couple questions. First, just making clear my understanding, well, I do know that the language that we tweaked yesterday was your language. So the offer to us that you made yesterday was limited to just medical care facilities. So just to make clear, you're backtracking on that position that you had yesterday afternoon.
No, we're not. This is the Senate President's offer, and to include that, clear up and clarify the language in subsection 3.
Okay, I mean, it was quite clear, but we'll move on from there. I've heard some concerns that if we expand it to everyone, we'll have like cancer treatment centers and those types of things. You're comfortable requiring them to have to treat everyone, even if they've got concerns that you might have people that are certainly high risk of catching COVID-19, that anyone and everyone should have to be treated, and physicians shouldn't be able to deny anyone from coming in there? Is that what
The Senate President's position is that...
Excuse me, is the Senate President here? I mean, he can negotiate with us if you're not comfortable doing so.
I'm perfectly comfortable with the Senate President's position and moving forward.
Okay.
So, as often happens when a bill comes that hasn't been heard in both chambers, this is how the negotiations occur. So, Senate President has looked into that issue and talked with healthcare providers as well, that it wouldn't impact those types of situations that you're talking about, because the language includes if you have based the denial solely on such person's COVID-19 vaccination status.
Okay. Well, we'll certainly take a little time to visit with the healthcare providers to make sure that's true. And then the only other question, I just want to clarify, at the beginning you said you've heard from Kansans that they don't like our counteroffer. If they're not Kansans in this room, they've not seen that. So I'm concerned, how have Kansans heard what my offer was going to be this morning?
I'm saying the Kansans that heard that there was nothing in the bill as it was presented to the public as is that would provide for protection for non-discrimination based on COVID-19 vaccination status.
Very good. Okay. If you have questions?
Yes, go ahead.
And I suspect this may be for the revisers, but in the proposed balloon, where do we go to find the definition for healthcare provider in this particular balloon?
Madam Chair and Representative, so recall that this is current law. It's part of KSA 60-5503, and the definition section for that is the one right before it, 60-5502, which is not in the bill, but is in the law. Healthcare provider means a person or entity that is licensed, registered, certified, or otherwise authorized by the state of Kansas to provide healthcare services in the state, including a hospice certified to participate in the Medicare program. Healthcare provider does not include any entity licensed under Chapter 39 of the KSAs, which I think is adult care homes, which have their own exception, and that's why those are drawn that way in this Liability Protection Act definition section.
And before you put your mask back on, would we also, is that statute also where we'll find a definition for this particular balloon for healthcare services?
Madam Chair and Representative, that is where you would find it, but it looks like that is not a defined term in the act. The only term defined is healthcare provider, not healthcare services.
And Madam Chair, why did you remove the reference specifically to KSA 65425 in your most recent balloon?
Thank you. Yes, after conversations with leadership and what is already in Section 5, as the reviser explained, that it was deemed repetitive and not necessary.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, are you okay if we take a little while to visit and chat with stakeholders and that types of thing to make sure
Sure.
we're good with that? Okay, thank you.
We will go ahead and stand and be in recess until 9:50. And if the House colleagues come back before then, we will be back, but we'll go ahead and stand at recess till 9:50. Thank you. those following along online, just to let you know, we are waiting for the third Senate conferee to return. So we are making sure he is aware that we are no longer in recess and having him return to committee. Now that our third Senate conferee has returned, we can go ahead and proceed. So with that, then, I think the House was considering the Senate offer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We took the little break there to have the chance to visit with some of the stakeholders, or to reach out to them, visit with members of our leadership team. We are concerned with the language that you've proposed back. We do think it reaches into that area where you've got private business owners that are providing services in their communities, and who are we to tell them who they have to serve and who they cannot serve? We're also concerned about the language. While you think it would give them the out, the solely language. We think that does work for the organ transplant teams, but we're concerned when it comes to other areas. Often there's not a large matrix of factors they use as to whether or not someone should get treatment for cancer. And so COVID vaccination could be one of the only things that they're looking at when they're determining who can and cannot come into our facility. And so that concerns us, making people go into areas that, they have high-risk patients and make them accept everyone. Our offer that we proposed a few moments ago covers facilities where patients often have no other choice but to go. If you've got to go to a hospital in your community, well, you may only have that one. And so we think we cover that, where people have no choice but where to go. Yours covers everything. And so we think ours covered those situations that are most important to people. This is something that we passed out of the House 21 days ago, and we didn't start talking about it as a team, I realized, until less than 2 days ago. But it's something that has been out there. We've known we'd have a deadline. From our perspective, at least, the Senate position has changed several times. The Senate Judiciary position has changed several times. We remain steadfast that our last offer is the best offer. It's one that we believe does achieve what our healthcare providers need it to achieve, but also does address what those concerns we're hearing from Kansans, that if they want to get medical treatment at a medical care facility and do not have the COVID vaccination, we think what we put in our offer gives them options for treatment, which is what they need and what they're asking for. And so we're not accepting your offer, and we're remaining at what our last offer was.
Thank you. Regarding some of the comments, it is the position of the Senate that has been presented here and yesterday and Monday in this conference committee, to be clear about that. To also be further clear, the House sent us Senate Bill 286, expanding the immunity from liability protection greatly in Section 5. The current law, as is agreed upon in the House and the Senate, was the position of the Senate in the conference committee when we arrived on Monday. And that is in Section 5A, that a health care provider is immune from civil liability for damages for acts, omissions, healthcare decisions, or the rendering of or the failure to render healthcare services, including services that are altered, delayed, or withheld as a direct response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. That was a position that the House and the Senate had agreed upon and was current law. The House then, on the House floor, greatly expanded the immunity provided and changed the language to, and I'm just talking about the relevant language that was changed, provides healthcare provider immunity from civil liability for damages, administrative fines, or penalties that arise out of or relate to acts, omissions, and other services, whether they're altered, delayed, or withheld, related to the COVID-19 public health emergency. So we were looking at expanded immunity as sent over by the House. The Senate had offered to change back to the current law position that was rejected by the House. So the Senate was willing to move forward with the House position as it came out of the House this session. And in that regard, then, it has been the Senate's position in this conference committee. Included in that first offer was, if you'll note, new Section 1 included that no medical care facility or person licensed, registered, certified, or otherwise authorized to practice a profession by the State Board of Healing Arts or the Board of Nursing pursuant to Chapter 65 shall decline to render healthcare services or otherwise discriminate in rendering healthcare services to a person based solely on such person's COVID-19 vaccination status. So that has been a position the Senate has taken in this conference committee. There's been some back and forth. There has been some discussions between Senate leadership and House leadership that House leadership, to my understanding, has been fully aware of. And that brings us to the Senate position as it was presented this morning. Regarding the House's response to the Senate position in Section 5, let me address some of those points that the House brought up. Regarding who may get served and not served by a healthcare provider, and whether you have a choice to go to that hospital in your community or not. Well, the Senate's position is that if you have to go to your doctor first, which I think is the first response of those who are seeking healthcare services, they go to their physician first. And to be denied care solely based on the COVID-19 vaccination status would deny persons who need to seek healthcare services, deny them from the opportunity, though that healthcare provider with the House's position has expanded immunity from liability. So the Senate's position is the other side of the coin. If the House is expanding immunity from liability, it should be the position that the healthcare service providers not discriminate on persons based solely on such persons' COVID-19 vaccination status. And the language is particularly narrow because it says based solely on such persons' COVID-19 vaccination status. It does not prevent a healthcare provider from temperature screens, does not prevent a healthcare provider from asking questions. Do you have any symptoms? Have you had any symptoms in the last 14 days? Do you currently have any symptoms? Have you been near a person who has had symptoms in the last 14 days? So it's based solely on that status. And if a healthcare provider is defending a claim and seeking the immunity that the House seeks to provide by its position, then the healthcare provider will be able to point to those other items. Well, we didn't deny service based solely on the COVID-19 vaccination status. It was because of a temperature check or because they had other symptoms that they presented with at the healthcare service provider's office. So that is why that the language is written as it is, that when we look at expanding immunity, which is the House's position, that the position of the Senate is then, well, this should cover the same healthcare providers that are covered by that expanded immunity. And again, it's based solely on such person's COVID-19 vaccination status. And if you're going to deny services and seek the immunity, it needs to be on some other reason, but not solely on the COVID-19 vaccination status. So it is the position of the Senate, after my understanding is Senate leadership talked with House leadership, that this is the offer that the Senate has to make, and it's the offer that the Senate leadership is in the House's hands at this point. So either accept the Senate's offer as presented to us by, after discussions that I've understood has taken place between leadership, and then we can move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, we are at a stalemate, and while the House, and I believe the Senate, is greatly concerned about our healthcare workers, and we wanted to provide this interference with the conduct of a hospital, and we certainly think the immunities that have been asked for by our businesses and our healthcare and the other things that are in 286, I do believe we're at a standstill, likely not going to reach an agreement on this, and so if we could move on to other bills when we come back this afternoon after we're on the floor, I would appreciate that.
Certainly, and just to be clear, it is the Senate's position that this offer that we made this morning is still on the table for the House to accept. Thank you. We do have to be on the floor, both the House and the Senate, at 10 o'clock, which is just a few minutes ago, so we will need to recess. There is a different conference committee that I'm involved in at 11, so we will have to take a look at a different time to be announced.
Could we, so we're actually on GO today on a gaming bill, so it may take 5 minutes or it may take 5 hours. Can we?
Say, what's your schedule look like?
So I believe we're going to go in at 10. We're going to go calendar on the bill and then go back and debate it. I mean, if we could, how can we do the most flexibility here? I realize that they have one at 10, but could we still do on recess of both houses? And if that doesn't work, then we just announce it at that time that doesn't work. So that way we've got a little flexibility, and as soon as we both have free time, we can do this again. Okay.
Right, we can just announce from the floor that we're calling the committee, and I will, I'm aware of that option.
Awesome.
We
Okay,
can
we'll
announce
figure it
from
out.
the floor, so, thank you. With that, then, we are recessed, or is it perhaps better to simply adjourn? With that, then, we are adjourned. Thank you.